All right, before we bring out the next guest, I just want to remind everyone that Project SAFE, the organization that we are here to benefit, was selected as the 2024 Nonprofit of the Year by the Athens Area Community Foundation.
That is a massive honor, y'all. I mean, we all know that. The announcement said, among other things, for nearly 50 years, Project SAFE has been a beacon of hope for survivors of domestic violence, providing emergency shelter, pioneering innovative programs, and advocating for policies that protect families.
So without further ado, please welcome the Executive Director of Project SAFE, Joan Pretty.
Woohoo!
All right, y'all. I have the standings. Yeah. You know, some fashion designer one of these days is going to make dress pants with pockets, and I'm going to be an early investor, and they're going to make a killing. All right. In fourth place, hanging on, Team 7, Dustin and Allison. Dropping down to third, Team 2, Jennifer and Joseph. Dropping down to second, Team 9, Jeremiah and Andy. And rising up from third to first, Team 4, Linda and Natalie. Okay, y'all. You know the drill. Your votes can put your favorite team on top. It really is that close. But you know, too, they do something so much more important than that. They can actually help someone defy gravity. I still remember the table we were sitting at. It had a janky leg, and so the whole table wobbled. And I was there in this little kitchen with a survivor, and she was telling me about the abuse she endured at the hands of her husband. And she said it felt like being covered with layers and layers of blankets. Each act of abuse, each put down, each humiliation, each threat, each beating, each rape, another blanket piled on and on until she couldn't move, she couldn't see, she couldn't breathe. He strangled her, too, physically, more than once, to the point of unconsciousness. But he also strangled her opinions, her ideas, her ambitions, and her goals. Over time, she said the weight of those blankets, the layers and layers, they were pushing her into the ground, she said, pushing her into her grave. But then she decided to choose herself. She decided to leave. She came to shelter. She went from there into that transitional apartment. And she said it felt like she was pulling off those blankets one at a time. She said she felt lighter. And then she put her hands on that wobbly table and she pushed down on it and she stood up and she said, on my best days, I feel like I can float. Talk about defying gravity. Now, Project SAFE, we work to end domestic violence, and across all of our programs, we work with thousands of people each year. But for some survivors who need more time and more support, we can offer longer-term housing. And we helped 35 individuals with this last year. 35 individuals that received housing and advocacy and supportive services anywhere from a couple of months to a couple of years. And for a long time, we have been funding part of this with a government grant. Now, all grants have strings attached. They have restrictions and requirements. But this one's been changing lately in ways that are no longer aligned with our values, with our belief that everyone deserves to be safe in their homes and safe in our relationships. And with our commitment as best we can to providing an individualized response instead of a one-size-fits-all approach. So we decided that it is time to say goodbye to that grant and take a leap. A leap of faith tonight. I have faith that through this event, on this night, we can raise enough money to replace that grant and sustain that program through 2027. Are you with me? But we need your help. And just indulge me for a second. I want you to think about your first place. Maybe the first place you signed the lease in your own name. Maybe your first place after leaving home, or the first place that you didn't share it with a whole bunch of roommates. If it was anything like mine, it was humble. It was a place filled with furniture that was thrifted or entirely assembled with an Allen wrench. It's the kind of place where there's at least one or two things that the landlord never bothers to fix, but after a couple of months you don't really notice anyway. It's the sort of place with thin walls. And there's always that one neighbor with the yappy dog or the really loud TV or band practice at midnight. But it was the first place where everything, from the groceries in the fridge to the decorations on the wall to the setting of the thermostat, was in your control. It wasn't home. It wasn't your dream, far from it, but it was yours. And you knew you were on your way to something better. That is what longer-term housing is like for survivors. Only for survivors of domestic violence, it may be the first place in a long time, for some even the first place ever, where the walls don't echo with the sound of the abuser's rage or their own cries, where the memories of abuse aren't hanging in the air like stale smoke. It's the place where they peel back the last of those blankets, the last of those layers of abuse, and give voice to those opinions and ideas and ambitions and goals that the abuser tried to suffocate. What do you think a place like that is worth? And what can you give tonight, knowing that your gift will be doubled, so that someone else can have that place, a place to defy the odds, a place to defy their abuser's expectation, and on their very best days, even to defy gravity. We're going to see in 15 minutes.